Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. My name is Bliss Foster, and today we joyfully find ourselves in Thom Browne Fall Winter 2021, a collection for women and men. This collection is brought to us through a short film that features Olympic gold medalist Lindsey Vonn, who crushed the downhill skiing event in 2010. Thom has been fascinated with the idea of the Olympics for most of his life, but he started to reference that more directly since his visit to the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which was the first Coliseum to host the Summer Olympic Games in 1932. The Olympics have been a thing in Thom Browne shows since last season in Spring/Summer 2021. It's a safe thing to say that these two collections are fairly connected. The short film was directed by Carissa Gallo, who's been making a name for herself making short films like these, as well as rather good commercials. I strongly encourage you to just go watch the short film yourself. It's 10 minutes long. It's very good. But we're going to do a quick plot summary here. It's kind of strange. With short films, you don't really have plots so much. It's more of a series of moods and vignettes and stuff. But this one does have a little bit of a narrative structure that we're just going to review very quickly. We start off with the title screen of sorts that says, "A most angelic and fantastical dream that led me back home. Lindsey Vonn is asleep in her bed, and she begins to dream about being led by a group of stick figures to a helicopter, where she is dropped off at the top of a mountain and begins to ski. And she skis past all of the looks in the collection," which is actually kind of cool because all of the looks sort of act like the flags in downhill skiing. It's kind of a cool nod there. Lindsey Vonn reaches the bottom and removes her helmet, begins crying, wakes up surrounded by her friends, and tells them about the dream that she's had, and we fade out. It sort of seems like this short film is reflecting the lifespan of a professional athlete's career, where they have like the early part of their life, and then there's this whirlwind, crazy, chaotic adventure of being a professional athlete, and then much quicker than people do in other careers, they age out of that career, and then it's sort of the rest of their life looking back on this just insane whirlwind time that feels almost like a dream to them. We're going to do a quick pause here where I encourage you to, I don't know. I have no clever ways of saying this. Please go join my Patreon. It's so great. You'll love it. You're going to love it so much. Please just go join it, please. Two other general notes about the film. One, it is so cool to get to see real athletes doing their thing wearing designer clothes. I don't know why more houses don't take advantage of this. The Thom Browne team actually sent me their press kit thing, and it includes this little flip book that shows another professional skier doing a different event, but still pro skiing in Thom Browne. And it's just, I don't know, this stuff is just so cool looking. Superhumans doing superhuman things in superhuman clothes. I like that. Second point, and totally unrelated, it is a bold move to do a collection short film entirely in black and white. You have to feel really confident about the textures in your collection before you're going to just remove 99% of the color in it. And that's what we have. We have excellent texturing in this show. But we're not completely in black and white. At the very beginning, we see Lindsey Vonn walking in her beautiful, vibrant Technicolor yellow lame dress. And at the end, we see her in bed wearing shoes that are also this bright yellow color. This is one of many things in this short film that lead me to believe that the primary inspiration was The Wizard of Oz. The themes of these wild-looking figures throughout acting as guides for where to go, the theme of longing for home, and the entire musical score for this short film is definitely a riff on Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Which is cool because there are so many things that are referencing the Wizard. There are more references culturally to The Wizard of Oz out there than there are milliseconds in the movie Wizard of Oz. But very rarely do we have something that is attempting to take that in a super different direction with those references. And with this collection, I feel like this is a very refreshing use of Wizard of Oz as a reference point. Let's move around, shall we? Thom Browne has really made a name for himself by introducing really unorthodox suit shapes and then expounding upon them by building a world that is very strange. It's like he's taking prep to its illogical extreme almost. And to further that point a little bit, Thom Browne's shows have always felt vaguely nightmarish. Not like the I'm falling kind of nightmare or the someone was chasing me or trying to hurt me kind of nightmare, but just a general unsettling about everything where when you wake up, it's very difficult to describe to yourself or others what exactly it was that made it scary. Like the people in these shows often feel very impersonal and kind of unhuman. The environments are are often so simplistic that it feels like something that your subconscious just quickly made up. The term nightmarish gets overused a whole lot generally. I'm sure I overuse the term nightmarish a whole lot, but these truly to me feel like something that I have experienced before while dreaming, where I wake up and I'm saying like, oh, well, there were these guys and they were like all gonna surf, but I don't know, it was just really scary, right? You know? And even here in this lookbook, the models even have a dreamlike float to them while they're wearing these outfits that look like black tie attire and ski gear, or duking it out for dominance over the body they cover. So everything in these Thom Browne shows always does feel very dreamlike, and at this point, the pandemic has lasted for so long that it's a reasonable question to ask: do people wear masks in your dreams? The masks actually serve a really cool purpose in this show as well. As far as I can tell, they're based off of fencing masks, which are, of course, intended only to protect your face. But in doing so, they end up basically covering your face, which makes fencing a really interesting sport because it's the only one that is very full contact and directly, like the bodies touch each other sometimes, but the two opponents can never look in each other's eyes. We'll do more about the masks here in a second. I was kind of wondering why the lines of these stick figures looked so familiar to me. It bugged me throughout the entire video. Then, like, all of a sudden, as I was writing this episode out, it occurred to me that they're very much in the style of Thom Browne's style of fashion illustration. He's apparently always just used these geometric shapes to communicate with his pattern cutting and design team. And the lines of those sketches have that same width and curvature as these stick figures do in the short film. And those stick figures make it into the final designs on the garments themselves. So we have a nice little full circle moment with Thom Browne here as we see the process getting displayed on the final product. The stick figures also kind of serve an interesting purpose because they kind of are like the way that masks make everyone now, where your face is kind of hidden, and so you end up becoming sort of genderless, or more genderless, I guess. Kind of a reference to the extra anonymity that's given to everyone because of these taking away our expressions and sort of making our gender a little bit more ambiguous, I guess. Which is also what the fencing masks do in this short film. Okay, so I would like to talk about the looks in detail in this show, but in order to do that, we need to just basically acknowledge the sheer volume of the details in this show. I mean, like, come on, like, this is a level of complexity and intricacy that we're more used to seeing in a Yohji Yamamoto show or in a mainline Comme des Garçons collection. And like, even if I'm unable to provide you with specific explanations for each choice here, the looks have all been radically attended to. And it's interesting because this level of complexity often ends up looking, at least at first glance, like a mess, kind of, right? Oftentimes when designers choose to execute their ideas like this, it comes off as extremely busy. Often it looks like just pieces of cloth that have been heaped onto each other. That's no shade from me. Many designers that do this have different goals and often meet them very well. But this Thom Browne show is not playing the same game. In the film and in these stills, these outfits look wild. They look like nothing I have seen before, but there is a great deal of purposefulness to them, and all of these pieces look like they were somehow meant to come together this way. Vogue pointed out that one of the ball skirts took over 100 pattern pieces to make, and one of the pleated trench coats took over 209 individual pattern pieces to make. That is a lot of pattern pieces, folks. The opening look is worn by Lindsey Vonn herself and kind of reminded me of the Pharrell Williams look that he had on the cover of GQ recently. When we get in really close, there's a number of looks here. I'm using look 5 for this specific example, but we see a map of a mountain. That little vague sketch of a terrain map is laid out across a type of it's a play on an attire that is a reference to an era of men's formal wear that almost doesn't exist anymore. I mean, like, where would you, obviously this piece itself is really wild, but the things that this is based off of, where would men even wear this stuff to anymore? Maybe fundraisers, very formal galas, and maybe one person's wedding over the course of your whole life. I mean, I'm from the American South, so most of the weddings I've been to have taken place in barns. But looks like this really present this contrast of the formality and the sportswear that Thom is trying to push with this collection. That's an idea that has been almost beaten to death overall in fashion, but this is an actually refreshing take on the high-low idea that we've been pushing since like 2010, because the elements of the two are balanced in such an interesting way, and it's so nightmarishly otherworldly that we end up seeing something here that I'm like so pleased that this turned out so well. So the formal elements of these outfits often have finishing details that would more belong on sports things, like putting a little quickly drawn map and people skiing and stuff. That sounds more like something that you would buy at like a Dick's Sporting Goods for a kid. Whereas the sections of these outfits that are more directly inspired by sportswear have these finishing details on them that look so solemn and intricate that it looks like something that you would definitely find in a evening gown. In look 4, we see this combination of the formality and the sportswear with these really beautiful shoulders. The textile strongly resembles a suiting wool, but then the way it's put together more strongly resembles football pads. We have a very on-trend pump that has a taper and a curve to the heel, but then there's very heavy elements of ski footwear up in the lacing especially and near the front of the sole there on the side. We see another very similar sentiment echoed in the cuffs. These are a combo of French cuffs that have been undone. So if like the double cuffs aren't cuffed up, they would easily cover your whole hand, right? So they're combining the most formal style of shirt cuffs that have been undone with the classic winter sportswear motif of thumb holes. We can even see, this is quite cool, I screamed when I saw this. So we see little echoes of Thom Browne's designed past in the construction of these shirts' sleeves. Like these, for example, it's done up in all white, so it's really easy to miss, but I'm pretty sure this is a reference to Spring/Summer 2015. This Spring/Summer 15 look very much evokes my least favorite thing that everyone says, which is, who would even wear this? But then when you see it executed in a formal dress shirt, it's like, that actually looks pretty cool. All right, it's really dark over here. We're gonna move. Look 7 shows us something really cool. So in this look, we see two separate pieces. We see a skirt and we see a really chunky sweater, right? So this level of detail that is being paid to a specific garment in terms of the finishing techniques that they're using on this thing, those kind of details are typically reserved for gowns, for entire single piece garments. But by giving that attention to detail and those kinds of techniques into separates, Thom is able to get us some really interesting styling going here. I feel like that's what contributes a lot to this kind of otherworldly feel to this, is that we have separates that have been treated like couture pieces. I'm taking kind of a wild guess here, but I think that look 17 is a play on the recent change in fencing where they've retrofitted a lot of the masks to be able to have actual mouth covering masks inside of them. It could also just be as simple as we wanted these cage masks to be a part of the entire collection, and some of these are going to have formal wear looking collars coming up over the mouth the way that heavy winter gear does. But I like my fencing theory because I wanted to be able to use the word retrofitted. Maybe the coolest single detail that Thom shared with us about this collection is that the curved,
Plissé. Plissé.
I'm just gonna go for it. The single coolest detail that Thom Browne shared with us about this collection is that the curved plissé on these pieces is meant to resemble the way that ice rinks look when speed skaters have finished practicing on them. Also the lines that are created when downhill skiers are cutting through snow. I'm gonna play pretty fast and loose with the analysis here, but holy shit, is that a Thom Browne animal roller suitcase? In look 12, we see patches from many of the different places where the Olympics took place. Lake Placid, Salt Lake City, Calgary, Beijing, Oslo. In look 13, we go full Dracula, full Raf Simons, and we have the most detailed and beautifully embroidered map that we see in the entire collection. And throughout all of these looks, we see the stick figures from the short film inside the garments, participating in many of the different Winter Olympic sports. Like we have slalom skiing here, we have bobsled that's barely visible right here, we have skiing, of course, we have snowboarding, and of course we have everyone's favorite Olympic winter sport, curling. Thank you so much for joining me. Hang tight for 1 second. Why have you not joined the Patreon? I have no other source of income. YouTube pays like nothing. But mostly you should get on the Patreon because the Discord community is literally the best community for fashion on the internet. It's literally just patreon.com/blissfoster. Kick me a few bucks each month and then proudly know that the content that you are consuming for free is brought to you by you. I'll talk to you guys later.